the need for growth is for me to spend more time on business development, networking, managing relationships, etc. I still find, just purely because of my engineering background, that and brought back into the detail, into nuts and bolts. That's probably where my real comfort zone is, to maintain that role. The challenge of trying to diversify my thought process in regards to running a business rather than just providing a good quality product.
Welcome to Long-Term Thinking for Business Success, a show for and by business owners. Each episode will explore how to beat the odds and create a sustainable business and the life we've dreamt of. Today's guest is Jonathan Carlo from Grid Power Design, a firm he started 7 years ago. Grid Power Design is a leading ASP3 accredited service provider in New South Wales. They specialise in providing high-quality electrical design and engineering services for various projects, including residential, commercial, and industrial developments. They're a team of experienced engineers and designers committed to delivering innovative, cost-effective solutions that meet their clients' unique needs. Before starting Grid Power Design, Jonathan spent almost 2 decades working with the Electrical Supply Authority of New South Wales, including Endeavour Energy and Ausgrid. Jonathan's education and work experience is at the intersection of electrical distribution and transmission design and project management. This involves specifying engineering details for the energy utilities industry and combining them with project or program management. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the Long-Term Thinking for Business Success podcast. And thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Rick.
To start things off, what change does Grid Power Design want to make? Or to put that another way, what's the vision you're trying to deliver?
Our vision is to provide unique solutions to designs where we need to provide an asset relocation or a increased supply load capacity to a premises, whether it being an existing premises or a new development. Clients usually come to us because they understand that we have the experience to be able to make those decisions and to be able to push the limits of what the utility standards provide.
Do your clients tend to be the utilities, or do you end up working with construction companies? Who typically engages you to do your work?
Our clients vary quite a lot, from government organisations, large tier 1 construction companies, down to the mum and dad doing a 2-lot subdivision. We need to be able to nurture that process depending on the complexity of the project.
We'll come back and look at some of the challenges around dealing with a very customer base and how you attract them. Just to go a little bit deeper on the business, and I find as business leaders, we often forget to celebrate achievements and wins. And you've been in business for 7 years. You've gotten over those first few hurdles where the vast majority of businesses fail. When you think back about the success you've had over the last 7 years at Grid Power Design, what are you most proud of and why?
I'm most proud of the fact that we've organically grown the business from where it was on the first day we started the business to today. It's purely been by doing a good job and giving the client a high quality outcome. I'd have to say what makes me most proud where we are today is our reputation.
That's great. It's envious of most professional services businesses. We want to be advisors to our clients, and it sounds like you've positioned yourself really well to be that trusted advisor and then do the work you want to do. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
As I said in the introduction, after 22 years working for the Electrical Supply Authorities of New South Wales, you decided to open your own business. Can I ask what drove you to become an entrepreneur? And was it something that you always wanted to be?
I didn't set out in my career always thinking that I wanted to become a business owner. It was more that working for the supply authorities was a great grounding and had no regrets spending time in that world. Every couple of years, was moving into different roles, getting different experience. And it came to a point where I could see that there was more to what was being offered there in the external market. I had existing clientele also telling me that my personality would be well suited to working in the external industry. That perked my thought processes and started that whole thinking process about having a go, seeing what it's like to actually start a business. It got to a point where there was a client that actually mentioned that I'm the right sort of person that they would feed work to if I was to leave. And that added a little bit of a mindset to where this all started. Fast forward to January 2017, when we first started the business. And looking back, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I actually thought this is going to be great. I would create a lifestyle for myself. I'd take Fridays off and thinking that I'll have full control of my day and how I spend my time. That last couple of years, I was working in the city and I live in northwest Sydney. The commute was actually getting to me. I found that most of my day was spent commuting. I was thinking there's got to be more to it than this. It felt like I was part of the cog in the wheel. That ended up getting to me at a point where I decided to think, hold on, there's got to be something more here. That was the catalyst for me to make the decision to make the break.
Thank you for that. Just thinking back to that first year or so, what were some of the critical challenges that you had to deal with when you first went out on your own, and how did you address them?
Starting up a business, having never had a business before, all the things that come with it around tax and quoting and systems and processes, and just plain old individual discipline to actually do the work. I feel that I always need to provide a quality product. I found that I was spending way too much time on projects, down to a point where sitting in my home office or sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon, I was finding myself feeling guilty that I'm not up in the office doing work if I'm relaxing at home, which actually came to me deciding to try and break my working from home work-life balance, and we ended up purchasing an office. The following year, we moved into this office and it did solve the problem. So it was a good solution. This was me just working as a sole employer within my company. And I started to delve into using subcontractors to do overflow works as well. I was still the go-to person to carry out all the negotiation with every single project.
Amazing how many different skills there are from just doing the work that require a business owner to suddenly think about. When I launched my business, I had the fortunate investor. It was a large public company, so we didn't have to think about financing and everything like that. We were integrated into their finance department. We could actually just focus on doing the work. Obviously, 7 years on, I'm sure your role has changed quite a bit. And in founder-led businesses, a founder, as I'm sure you are, still remains very involved in many aspects of the company. Can you share today what your top priorities are and how you try to remain focused on them?
Our top priorities, I would have to summarize as saying maintaining quality. I was the one-stop shop. I had control of my own quality that I would put out to my clients. I would see every minute detail, every email back and forth, every interaction with every part of the process. Letting go of that to staff members has been quite a challenge, and it is still a work in progress. I run myself working way more hours than I would have comfortably liked to for too long, and to the point where I was physically feeling burnt out. That has pushed me down the path of ramping up the business to a point where all the details of the project don't lie with me. Learning to spread that load. Yeah, it's an ongoing challenge.
Today, are you still involved in project delivery? Are you more focused on managing relationships and business development? If there were buckets of key things that you are responsible for, what would the top 3 and 4 of those buckets be?
At the moment, I'm still involved in the nurturing of every single project. I'm slowly delegating that to my senior engineer, who is he's a gun and he's destined for success. I'm lucky to have it. And having that type of person in the business is fundamental to our growth. The challenge I've been facing previously, not having that right personality or that right drive in a staff member to be actually trusting to hand over the engineering detail or even the client management to. Coming back to the question, I find that at the moment, we're at that point where I feel that the need for growth is for me to spend more time on business development, networking, managing relationships, etc. I still find, just purely because of my engineering background, that I'm brought back into the detail, into nuts and bolts, which feel I'm quite skilled at. And that's probably where my real comfort zone is, to maintain that role. The challenge of trying to diversify my thought process in regards to running a business rather than providing a good quality product is where I see myself in this position right now. I still want to do a good quality product. It's just I want to be able to delegate that skill set to the next person in the business. The way the business grows is purely based on being able to hand over those tasks.
I agree. As owners, we have to decide what do we want to do in our business, and we either try to find a salesperson who can drive the sales of the business, or we can stay on the tools, or we separate ourselves from the tools. It's always a balance, and I haven't been able to find the right mix of that either, so I understand that. You mentioned a couple of times that a quality product and service is key to your reputation. Are there things that you've done with the team and in the business to ensure that quality is there, or is it just really relied on either your involvement in product and projects or the people that you've finally got onto your team?
Currently, it's maintaining myself being across all projects so that I can see exactly what's going out. Sometimes being a little bit too pedantic, slowing down the project in the process, purely because I feel the reputation and the design quality needs to be of a certain standard. I have this philosophy that I always tell my staff is that when you do a design, as complicated as it needs to be in the engineering world, always want to come back to the philosophy that whatever design you put out, you want it to be comprehensive enough so that if your mum actually looked at that design, they would understand what it's trying to say and what the task is on that design. Simple is always the best way. Engineers typically always try and overcomplicate things and expect that the reader is as informed or as educated as them in their field. Our designs actually go out to constructors, councils, developers, engineers. Everybody needs to be able to use that as a tool so that they understand what the task is and the intention of what our design is.
That's great. I love that mum test. We use the same principle when we're helping a client articulate the vision that they're trying to deliver and go, if you told it to your mum, will they finally understand what
Well,
they're
there you
doing?
go.
Because unless your mum is different to mine, she looks at me and goes, but what do you do? You've mentioned a couple of times that you finally got a team around you. As we've alluded to, having the right team is obviously instrumental to the future success of the business. I'm sure your role has continually changed as you've grown the team. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've built your team to support both your personal growth as well as the growth of the business?
Building the team has been a work in progress and it still will be, and I'm sure it will continue to be throughout the whole business journey. In regards to building the staff, fundamentally, I'm looking to somebody that I can actually nurture to actually do the detailed design and maintain the quality that we're trying to output to our clients. In the past, I've discovered that throughout the staff that have come and gone as well, they all seem to be quite well versed at learning a task or being taught a task and then implementing that task. What has been quite challenging is to find people that can think outside the box and go find the answers. I myself have been in the industry for a long time and I still don't know all the answers. Every day there's new information that's coming to us in regards to the environment, the electrical standards, processes, procedures, etc. Having staff members that can actually evolve with it without me telling them specifically, this is your dot point list that you need to follow exactly. Having people that can go and find those answers is really what has helped us to grow and allow the business to expand. I feel our greatest success has been to actually have those people that can actually think for themselves and negotiate and find answers.
Well, we've got staff around us that can support us rather than us having to support them. It's such an enabling opportunity for a business owner. Again, thinking back over the last 7 years, what do you think are 3 things that's most contributed to your success?
I would say personally, my success is probably based on the knowledge that I've gained working for the utilities, having that understanding of the processes and procedures that the utilities that are effectively certifying our designs having to go through, and the checklists and the issues they have to deal with from their end. Understanding that process has been quite a valuable tool for me just to be able to work through their process, making their systems achievable as well so that I can get the outcome I need as well. Collaborative result is always what we're trying to achieve.
Given the success you've had, given the training or background you had with the utilities, is that where you have tried to look for staff members? Do you try to bring them from the industry to your business, or you typically find other people who have been in consulting to bring to your team?
You would think that most of that skill set would come from utilities. However, the utilities roles, they're quite good jobs. They're quite well paid. Even myself, it was a struggle to leave. The typical officer roles are on 9-day fortnights, etc., and plus super pay. It's a pretty good environment to be in. Though trying to get staff from the utilities has been quite a challenge. Not to say that I've actually gone out physically looking. Obviously, I do have relationships within the businesses where I would say there would be quite a few suitable people that would be great to have with us. Being a small business, to maintain or give them the security of what they have within the utility to a small business is not for everybody. Some people won't get into the risk of moving from a large corporate to effectively a small company under 10 staff.
I know that feeling as well. We've tried to win people from large agencies or large corporate, and it's very hard to entice them over, even though they'll do a great job. Just to go back to one of the comments we discussed earlier, one I find in the discussions I've had is that many founders and leaders find the hardest part of growing an SME is managing sales. Often it's the leader's network or referrals that drive new business. How do you approach business development and managing that balancing act between winning and doing the work?
At the moment, our external business development is effectively non-existent. We are working on it though. All our work comes from word of mouth and from my network. Currently, the way we do it is a lead will come in to us, whether it's a request for a quotation or a referral from another client about a need that a developer or an external provider is requiring. We usually start off with either a field inspection with the client or do a quick desktop study online, just giving them a little bit of intel about what's going to be required to carry out the project they're asking for and identifying any risks or costs to the client. That gives the client comfort that we know how to solve the problem they have. We can give them options if they wanted to do this in the fastest process or the most efficient process or the most cost-effective process, and understand their needs, understand, is it based on cost? Is it based on time? Do they want to solve a problem that they don't know how to solve and they need us to be there to solve that for them? It's understanding that criteria and giving the client comfort that we are the guys that can help them solve that issue or resolve their problem or carry out the project to a design standard that they are happy with the outcome.
That aligns with one of my principles. I think the scarcity in a sale is actually trust. Does the prospect or client trust that you can do the work? And how do we build that trust through the sales process? And that idea of site visits and demonstrating capability through the journey hopefully builds that trust with that prospect. When you do go after work, and obviously you talked about it when a sale comes through, you get a request for a quote. But when you're doing any sort of proactive work, and it may not be a lot of it, do you focus on building deeper relationships with current clients or constantly looking for new clients to bring in work to the business?
Because our skill set is quite specialised, we find that it's been working quite organically with our existing clientele, and maintaining and nurturing those relationships have been fundamental. As other businesses that we work with expand, they have their own network where they say, go to Grid Power Design, they can sort you out. Most of our relationships come from nurturing and maintaining those relationships. That has been fundamental, which is where our focus is on our business development.
Just to be clear, rather than necessarily trying to win clients direct, which I'm sure you would accept and do work in that area, more of your effort is for what would traditionally be called a channel play, so that you've got other engineering firms that would bring you in for work or refer work to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Some of the people that refer work to us are even effectively our direct competitors. They understand our skill set within our niche market, and they'll send it to us as a project that they say, these guys are capable of this specific task, and maintaining those relationships has been fantastic. Collaboration with effectively, could we say, competitors within the industry has been great. Leaving the utility, having a support structure around you of all different discipline experts within the utility business. I'd found that I'd lost that connection and being able to just call someone up on the phone that's an expert in a certain field and have that answer quite fast within working for the utilities. Leaving that within the ASP tree world, there is a select couple of businesses where we are effectively direct competitors, but we collaborate together and we pass work on from one to another, depending on our skill set or location or type of work. The network we have within our own little niche world has been really fundamental in our growth, even though we're direct competitors.
Earlier, you said that you don't do any or very little sales and marketing. I think what the world has been taught that marketing is with advertising. I would argue what you're doing in building and maintaining those relationships with competitors and the network is core to small business marketing. Often when we're developing marketing plans for clients, we look at how we can systematize and process that relationship management, because that's where 80 to 90% of work probably comes from today. If we can maintain that level, but then grow another channel, then there's value being brought into the business. Thinking back over the last 7 years of building group power design, can you think back to when the business was what I call it a fork in the road and the company's direction could change possibly quite profoundly depending on the decision you made and the path you chose? Just as an example, my first marketing business was an email marketing agency 20 odd years ago. It's all we did. When email commoditized, we chose to go broad and offer lots of different marketing services to clients rather than going deeper and building really deep, unique expertise. Again, just thinking back, has there been a fork in the road decision in your business that you had to make? It might be worth noting that often we may not be aware of the decision, and I definitely wasn't aware of the decision when we made it at the time, but with hindsight, it's easy to see the two different paths you could have taken.
Initially, when I was effectively at the beginning of the business, as the workload increased, I would be using subcontractors within the industry, capable subcontractors that I knew and trusted in the industry to actually help me deliver. Whilst quite profitable, it ended up being not a sustainable process because the time I was spending on each project, I was still the person that needed to do the negotiation, understand every single detail about the project. I may not have been doing the drafting or any of the background engineering, but I was still having to understand every single detail of that project and still being that front man. Eventually, I made the decision that that formula, whilst profitable, wasn't the formula to maintain and expand on, purely because buck always stopped with me. The more work I took on, the more work I had to deal with. It got to a point where I was working 30 hours a week and found that, no, this is not what I set out for when I left to go make a start on my own. That was where the decision was, where we had to push the business into the path to start putting on full-time employees, nurturing the business to grow that way. Really happy that we took that step. Obviously, expenses go up exponentially once you're starting to pay wages, not just contractor fees. I think that was what was stopping us or slowing us down in our growth, purely because one person can only do so much.
I assume that then created a problem on what is typically called a bench. If you don't have enough work for your full-time staff, they're sitting on a bench. Has that been a challenge in your business? And if so, how do you manage that and how do you keep the team occupied when there may not be enough client work for them to do?
That was the exact question that held me back starting out with full-time staff from the beginning. I always thought keep expenses low, profit margin stays high, etc. The worry was always there that if I'm putting on a full-time staff, can I keep them profitable in the business? Is there going to be a consistent flow of work so that I can keep them busy? That decision didn't come lightly. Over the years, sometimes I'd get to a point where I'd be in control of the amount of projects that I have and be up to date. And I think, oh, if I had somebody now, I'd have no work for them. As the business developed, that situation became less, and having more and more clients diminished that perceived risk about not being able to fill a full-time role to actually do the work. Taking that plunge was what I would feel a big move in the business in regards to where the business can go from here.
Thank you. Just to do a bit of a left turn, creating systems and process is one of the most common answers to why a business has been successful over time. Can you tell us about a system or process that has significantly impacted your success and what impact it created?
Because it started off with just myself, started off with Excel spreadsheets, just a thing that's always just to serve a purpose, to do a specific task. That ended up becoming to a point where it became unmanageable and allowing a lot of room for error, a lot of human error within the systems, even multiple times having to put in the address or a project title into different systems became quite cumbersome and time consuming. And I would feel that I'm just becoming a glorified admin engineer of my own creation. And finding that was what was taking me time to do quotes and set up projects was quite inefficient. At the moment, and it's still a works in progress. It's a lot better than it was, but I think it's an ongoing thing to get our systems and processes into a very customized, systematic setup in regards to our business. Understanding tools that are available to us has been also quite a learning process. Trying business development managers or trying to have external people starting to plug into the business. I did try a little bit of that. Whilst they brought good ideas, I found that the decision-making process and the research still had to come back to myself because I understand the process so specifically.
You mentioned in that answer that tools have been part of that system and process improvement. Are there specific tools you use either for the quoting or for managing projects?
For quotes in particular, I understood there's obviously many tools that can help you in your quoting. Because every single quote was not a task, price and then a total type of situation, I found that even the tools within Xero, which is what we use for our financials, wasn't sufficient to actually provide detail in the customized quotes that we needed to provide. We ended up doing effectively an ad hoc PDF where we had to manually modify PDFs based on previous quotes, etc., to try and make them fit. That was working, but it was very cumbersome and open to human error. So if I'm trying to rush it on a Friday afternoon, the outcome wasn't great. I found that I would need to allow a specific amount of time to do quotes properly. Since then, we've found a workaround with Xero, considering we were paying for that anyway, to actually create quite a good quotation based on that, which is all trackable. Understanding the tools and having them work for us rather than us providing that detail has been a game changer.
It's amazing how we get the tools to work properly. That we're saying might only be a few minutes on each quote, but that few minutes adds up and just removes so much stress. I know that when I've used tools properly and they've saved time and energy, it's been a relief for me. Again, just to go back up to big picture, if you could change one aspect of your business overnight, what would that be and why?
What I want to change, the type of work we do is quite specialised, and a lot of time taken on projects is an unknown based on somebody else certifying our project or somebody else's opinion. The people that we have to deal with to get projects certified are always different personalities. Some people might be very proactive in the information they provide back to us. Some people might just give us a one-liner or give us a comment that is irrelevant to the project or is just slowing down our project or making a big deal out of an issue is not really relevant to the project as a whole, and thus slowing down the whole process. Our typical billing cycle is that we bill at completion of our works. There are things out of our control that actually slow down the process. We've had to take on steps to understand that we have enough projects in that we can't rely on every project going in the exact time frame that we would expect it to be delivered in the most optimum outcome. As much as we try and we push for that for our clients, there are things that are out of our control.
Fundamentally, you'd like to remove some of the uncertainty with things out of your control, whether that's an industry-wide standardization solution you'd need to look at or different documentation for you to provide to these authorities who are approving your work so that they can approve it in a way or give you feedback so that you can adjust the project so it meets their approval. Just to start to bring things to a close, a great strategy is focused on the most impactful activities. And our experience has shown that at any point, a company can really only focus on a finite number of priorities, typically somewhere between 2 and 4 major projects within an organization, internally focused. Can you talk about one or two of your current strategic initiatives and the decision process you use to determine these priorities?
Because we carry out bespoke designs and a little bit outside of the box type of generic distribution and transmission design works, we've had to invest in specific design software that can allow us to be capable of doing some work that's outside of what will be normally the tasks set out by a typical ASP trade. By implementing these new systems and processes and combining these multiple spreadsheets and databases that we're running for invoicing projects, project status, quotes, amalgamating them all into one package has been a game saver in regards to times. It's a work in progress. There's a real clear path on that is what the business has needed to be able to work more efficiently and use the tools to minimize human error and allow for streamlining and optimization of each project.
When you think about the decision to build some of this automation and leverage some of the tools available, was that driven from a desire to remove the human error, or was it more around removing the frustration and the additional work that you had to do because you had multiple platforms?
It's a little bit of both, actually. It's when there is human error in your systems that does end up taking time to rectify. That ended up sometimes quite a time-consuming project process just to work out what has caused the imbalance in a spreadsheet or understanding effectively what stage of a project is at or who the person that we are billing is. Having those systems all in one place has been a game changer in regards to both time and accuracy of our information.
And hopefully it relieved a lot of frustration for you as well.
100%.
To the final question, Bill Gates famously said, We overestimate what we can get done in 1 year and we underestimate what we can get done in 10 years. Where do you see Grid Power Design in the next 5 to 10 years? And what do you think are some of the key obstacles you would need to overcome to get there?
In the next 5 years, I would see the business maturing into something that is more sustainable to a point where I have systems and processes in place where I will be able to step out of the business to a point where the capabilities within the business will run itself.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. I look forward to being that success and seeing you playing more golf or surfing or camping, whatever it is that you do to relax with the newfound freedom that you'll have in the next few years. As I said, that was my final question. Thank you for allowing us to dive into your own journey and Grid Power Design and for sharing your experience and lessons. And as I said, I look forward to seeing your continued success.
Can I just say one other thing, just if we want to bring it back to that last part? What I would really like to see within the next 5 years is nurturing and empowering my staff members to actually take on the business and reap the rewards accordingly and love it as much as I have.
That's a vision that we would all love within our business, I'm sure. Just to push a little bit into that, are you then looking at options to or ideas around giving them some sort of either stakeholder in the business, equity or shares or something like that, or profit bonus? How trying to bridge that gap between them being employees but having a ownership attitude?
Reflecting on the way I found I was motivated, if I was in their shoes, I would be looking at giving them business ownership and effectively handing over the reins so that there is an uncapped earnings potential for the next person that ends up taking over the business.
That's great. I'm looking at ways to do that for my own business as well. Jonathan, as I said, that was my final question. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope you find solutions to inspire your team to enable you to do what you want to do, whether that be playing more golf or going more camping, as I know you're a fan of. Thank you again for allowing us to dive into Grid Power Design and for sharing your experiences and lessons. And as I said, I look forward to seeing your continued success.
Thanks, Rick. Much appreciated.